Teachers of Reddit, what is your best that kid is going places story? I taught a kid who saved up his paper route money in 7th grade to buy a lawnmower. He started mowing lawns as a summer job. By 10th grade, he had 3 lawn mowers and was subcontracting mowing work out to other students. The summer after 11th grade, he had saved up money to buy an old truck, then worked bringing junk to the dump for people who didn't have one. Meanwhile, his workers kept mowing lawns. By the end of 12th grade he had bought equipment to seal and repair asphalt driveways and paint lines. Equipment he tows around using his old truck. 3 years out of high school and he's getting municipal contracts to paint lines on the roadways and parking lots, work he's partially subcontracted out to others while he goes to school full-time working on a business degree. He still contracts high school students to mow lawns. Edit. He also has contracts to mow grass and clear brush with several municipalities in the area, as well as local businesses. He's currently saving up to buy heavy equipment, dump trucks, loaders, backhoes, etc. to further expand his business opportunities. I've never seen a kid with such self-motivation, drive, and determination. It's enviable. History prof. Here, I still remember the girl's middle name and still communicate with her on FB occasionally. I was a grad student, teaching adjunct classes for the local community college. She was in one of my night classes held at a bad local high school. She was a student there, junior year, 16 years old, obviously a little scared, being surrounded by college students. Tiny little black girl who barely said a peep the first few class meetings. After the first week or so, she came to me after class to ask for reading recommendations on a subject in the textbook, Mid-Atlantic Sectionalism in the 1850s. If anyone's interested, the thing is, that was only covered in the last chapter of the book. She'd already finished the textbook and the outside reading in a week, while attending 2 other college-level night classes and high school. I made it my job to engage her. After that, she asked incredibly thoughtful questions and had a first-rate analytical mind. Bear in mind, this was the worst school in the city, and she lived in the worst neighborhood, and this was right as the crack sea epidemic went into high gear. The girl basically lived in a war zone. I eventually asked her where she wanted to go to university, and she said my mom will only let me go to an all-girls college. I thought about it and asked, you think your mom's ever heard of Radcliffe? She broke out in a grin and said nope, but we could never afford Harvard. What she didn't know was my best friend was on our local Harvard Radcliffe review board. The folks who personally interview applicants in each city. She also didn't know about the size of Harvard's endowment, but I did. So I convinced her to apply, wrote her the most enthusiastic rec I could conjure, even paid the app fee, called my friend to give her a heads up that this girl was special. She graduated from Radcliffe College in 3 years, double major, and her mama didn't figure out a thing until graduation day. This made me so happy to read. But I work in a school, so here we go. One of the kids at the school I work at started doing everyone's homework for pay. The thing is, he was smart enough to ask for samples of the other kids' handwriting and copy their handwriting as best as he could while doing the homework for them. It took about 2 months for him to be caught, and in that time he had made over $1,000 doing homework for other kids. The only reason he even got caught was that he was spending so much time at home doing homework. 5th graders get about 30 minutes of homework a night on average, outside of big projects, and his parents went to the school to complain about how much homework he was doing every night. I'm not a teacher, but when I was a senior in high school there was a freshman in my metal fab class. He took to things right away: welding, machining, casting. He was a natural. He started tinkering with some mechanical stuff and started a project. He took an old lawnmower motor and the leaf spring from a pickup and made this crazy machine that wound up a heavy metal shaft, and the leaf spring slammed it down into an anvil. Then he started forging tools and used the mechanical hammer to shape them. I saw him on Facebook a couple of years ago and he runs his own metallurgy business making custom art, wrought iron gates and the like. I knew he could make a living doing this stuff the moment I saw him pick up a tool. I had a first grader one year, smartest kid I've ever taught, who figured out that the square of any number must end in 0, 1, 4, 9, 6, or 5 and that it goes in a pattern: 0, 1, 4, 9, 6, 5, 6, 9, 4, 1, 0 then repeat. First grade. The square of any number must end in 0, 1, 4, 9, 6, or 5 and that it goes in a pattern. 0, 1, 4, 9, 6, 5, 6, 9, 4, 1, 0 then repeat. Till. Preschool teacher here. We have a 3, almost 4-year-old at my daycare who wows us with his interest in numbers. He is obsessed with telling time and can read an analog clock. As an extension of this, if you say to him it's 4:10 right now, how long until 5:20, he's able to rattle off 70 minutes. He's also extremely interested in traffic and has memorized most of the highways in our city and often tells us if there is an accident on one. It's not only that he can do neat tricks, it's that you can plainly see on his face all the gears turning in his brain. He's so personable, open to learning, and quick to catch on. I find it very interesting and gratifying to see a child clearly so full of potential so young. We work on mathematics with him whenever we can and dearly hope he continues to pursue his passions as he grows. It's a trend in mathematics that most published papers are written by younger authors, with open problems only getting more advanced. We need young minds. If the kid loves math, teach him some cool tools for the age, like arithmetic and squaring, and show him a problem like the Collatz conjecture. Very simple problem. No one knows how to do it. Not a teacher, but I once knew a guy who took something like 12 AP exams his senior year of high school, most of which were 4 classes he completed online in a McDonald's because he didn't have Wi-Fi at home and his school didn't offer them in person. The greatest thing he ever told me was, if you ever want to do something, do it yourself. He's pursuing a physics degree at MIT now. I took and passed 10 and would study at the college across town till midnight. Now I work at Starbucks and have to pay out of pocket for fudging my first 2 semester in college. Potential isn't crap if you don't have the drive. When I was 18, I got a job as an program administrator for a non-profit after-school program for refugee students in middle school. All my students were from Burma, Thailand and Myanmar. Most of them had arrived in the US from 6 months to a year, so obviously there was a language barrier. We had over 70 students when we first started off, and it was really difficult to communicate with the kids because they all spoke different dialects of the same languages and sometimes they couldn't even understand one another. Thankfully, I had 2 students who were so easily able to adapt they learned how to communicate with the other students. One of those 2 kids was a young girl who literally defied all odds. Her dad had passed away and she was only allowed to come here with her grandmother and her aunt's family of 7. Her grandmother passed away after 3 short months and she was left under the care of her aunt and uncle who already had 6 kids to look after. This little girl, who was only in America for barely 8 months, had learned several different dialects, managed to excel in ESL, and even picked up some Spanish. She was incredibly smart when it came to mathematics. I had her help me with my college algebra. Recently, she just turned 18 and a few years ago she added me on Facebook. For her 18th birthday, she gave a speech at a huge convention in Houston for refugees. She commented on her time with our after-school program, and as if it wasn't for us and our help and attention, she wouldn't have had the confidence to stand in front of hundreds of people and share her story. Her ability to thank others for her own motivation and aspirations is just amazing to me. Even though I wasn't a teacher directly and I honestly just managed the logistics of the after-school program, working with kids made me a much better person. Burma and Myanmar are the same thing. I was privileged to have a true prodigy student who, at 11 years old, had already worked through and memorized many of Bach's 2-part inventions, several well-tempered clavier preludes and fugues, and was working on Chopin preludes, etudes and waltzes, among other literature. I told his parents their son was going places and that they should fully support a special accelerated course of music studies for him. He recently earned a Doctor of Musical Arts degree, performance, and is getting offers playing solo piano works and concertos with orchestras. That is amazing. I teach high school social studies and I have a bunch to choose from, but I'll choose 3 of my favorites. 1. I once saw a kid reading a thick packet that he had printed out. I asked him what it was. He said it was a collection of majority, concurring, and dissenting opinions from a recent Supreme Court case. I asked him why he was reading it. His response: for fun. 2. I had one student who was not strong in traditional academics. He was a good kid, but his grades weren't great and he often didn't feel like doing schoolwork. I later had a conversation with him in which I discovered he had been diving deep into researching, buying and reselling high-priced sneakers. He showed me how he often cleared a few $1,000s a month doing so, just as a part-time gig. This may have contributed to his lack of desire to do algebra or read Shakespeare to prepare for his future. 3. Not a story per se, but I had one student who could explain the geopolitical history and situation of over 50 sovereign states, could host a school assembly event with zero preparation and made over 500 kids and adults laugh consistently, and once organized a political protest with hundreds of teenagers. She was legitimately the most intelligent human I have ever taught, easily more intelligent than many of the adults in the school, myself being no exception. I had some college students in my speaking class, ESL. I asked them an opinion question about the Industrial Revolution and they had not one clue what I was talking about. Even when I broke it down to dates and inventions they remained lost. My goal was for them to be able to express an opinion, not deliver their turn of the century expertise, so we moved on. Well, the next day one student took it upon himself to research the Industrial Revolution and told me all about it the next morning. He ended it with, "It was really interesting, thanks. An inquisitive mind can take you to so many places." I'm about a year in, including a semester of student teaching and replacing a teacher mid-year, so I haven't had as many students as some of the other posters. That said, I've got 2 examples of 8th grade students. 1. One student has gotten into podcasting and did a few projects in podcast and webcast form. He has a bit of a speech problem with pronunciation. Think Ric Flair or Dusty Rhodes, but his heart's in the right place and I see him working towards that goal. 2. I had my students create a debate where they had to research different topics between cell phone usage versus not, effects of television and games, implications of torture for military use, etc. One student who sided against torture gave a rich, detailed paper with sources from both sides of the political spectrum to create a well-rounded debate. Her written portion was excellent, but her actual classroom debate was even better, as she appealed to everyone emotionally and logically. I remember telling one of the other teachers, "Holy crap, she's my new attorney. Tell the girl what you thought about the debate too." My English teacher said I was the best high school level lawyer she'd ever taught. I'll remember it forever. Not a teacher, but there was a kid in one of my friend, who is a teacher's class who got 100% in the course. He at one point got an answer wrong on a test. It turned out that the answer key was wrong and he was right. This was in AP Calculus. To be fair, calculus can get the best of a lot of people. While I won't discredit his ability in understanding the subject material, unless this was the AP Calculus that covers Calc 2 material, then he is a smart person. Apparently Muhammad Ali wasn't going to graduate high school. He was the second lowest scoring student, but the faculty and staff had a meeting and essentially decided to fudge the numbers. Their rationale being, we don't want to be the people who stopped Cassius Clay from doing amazing things. Kid used to make announcement videos for his church by quick pressing the record stop buttons on an old VCR camera. Did some amazing stuff with Star Wars figures. Some local video editing guys had him show them how he did it. This was in the late 90s, and told him what he was doing wasn't supposed to be possible with a VCR camera. He's a movie producer now. Preschool teacher here. When one of my 3-year-olds started weird allying traditional kids songs, like London Bridge is Falling Down became Take the Pee and Flush It Down, and she'd stop and scream after the When I Get All Steamed Up, Hear Me Shout line and I'm a Little Teapot. That level of wordplay and social knowledge is really impressive. I taught preschool for a while, and it surprised me how varied some of the kids are in development at such a young age. I'd have 2-year-olds who could name every shape and color I could throw at them, and some who could only eat all the crayons. During my student teaching I had a student in my 10th grade English class who brought in a griddle into school and made grilled cheese sandwiches. He had it right on his desk. I said I wouldn't give him a detention if he made me one. Well, how good was it? I tried to emphasize creative problem solving and entrepreneurship last year with my 6th graders, And we did a lots of small activities leading up to a big project wherein they come up with a product to sell to their classmates Shark Tank style. Tons of kids showed potential, but there were 2 girls in particular who started making things at home and selling them to other students and teachers at school. One made these amazing chocolate pretzel things. The other made and sold slime, which she learned how to make in science class. There are middle schoolers selling homemade slime online that make more money than I do. Crazy. Not a teacher, but I'm really interested to see where this one girl I went to high school with ends up. She didn't get the best grades, but if you talk to her you realize just how smart she was. She had a very decent understanding of advanced physics and psychology. She very well could have been a straight A student, but she said she was just too bored to care. She also didn't have many friends and spent a lot of time alone, but if you took the time to talk to her you could have amazing hour-long conversations. But she has, or full anxiety, but she coped so well you'd never know. In senior year she got a private meeting with her House representative and got to meet the Prime Minister of Canada in Ottawa, the capital of Canada. We live in a small no-name town in northern BC. It's been a few years since high school and she's going to school full-time at a community college in Vancouver. Due to the not caring thing in high school, her grades were just slightly too low to go to a university. But in addition to that, she's traveled all over Canada, the United States and Europe, and has a low-level management position for a multinational company despite only working with She's going to be a workshop facilitator at a national conference. She feels like she is a complete underachiever, but I feel like she's going to do something great. She hasn't even hit 20 yet, but she's met 3 world leaders and has a secure career should she choose to stay with the company she's with now. That's not too bad if you ask me. You should let her know you believe in her. It might give her a confidence boost or at least make her day. My 12-year-old cousin is an entrepreneur. He is really good at taking things apart and putting them back together. So he has become the school's unofficial mechanic. People go to him when their pens are broken and he charges 50 cents for a diagnostic test and $1 if he manages to fix it. He also folds paper aeroplanes that can really fly far for 50 cents each. He even offered to teach his schoolmates how to fold it, but people are just lazy and would rather buy one from him. He can take any stationery and make a gun that can shoot paper pellets. My aunt found out about his business when she discovered the amount of money he had. You can buy a new pen for less than $1. Not a teacher, but in my 8th grade algebra class, there was a 6th grader doing better than all of us. He's going to be doing calculus in his sophomore year. That was fairly common at my school. Not a teacher. Some kid on my high school robotics team is 14 years old and in 10th grade. He's written the code for all of our vision processing this year and it works fairly well. I got to watch Magic Johnson play my high school basketball team as a junior. He was drawing a crowd even then. It wasn't hard to see that he was heading to great things. Former music teacher here. I had a student write me an 8-page song. She played and sang it on the piano with such poise. It was called Always Follow Your Heart. She is going to be amazing at whatever she decides to do. My friend right now is building a model jet engine in his spare time. Not a kit, making it from parts he finds. He knows a computer inside out and has built several decent machines out of stuff he finds at the local dump. i5 and 7s. He has built a working remote control robot, is self-taught at piano and could play it without knowing how to read it at age 10, proficiently. He loves films and makes short films in his spare time as well. He can play the saxophone very well as the piano. With all that, he's extremely humble about it and only reveals his various talents if asked about them. My friend group is the only one who he will show off his creations to. His only downfall is that he for the life of him cannot take tests, does poorly every time. Oh, and did I mention he's training with the national karate team and is competing in Ireland soon with his mother who is on the team. Also, he's 15. I teach elementary school and I run ultra marathons and organize trail races in my free time. We had an outing for my science class to find trash around the school. I was walking by the track with a kid who is pretty lean and tall and challenged him to a race, 1 lap. The plan was to let him stay close then school him at the end. When we got around the last turn he slowed a bit. I did too. Then he took off and we ended about even. He told me his plan was to keep with me then school me at the end. Few months later I got him on the youth track team and he's keeping up with the high schoolers. Can't wait to see how he does if he keeps up the drive. Not a teacher but a tutor who got tricked into tutoring to 14-year-old who was way above my ability. My girlfriend at the time was familiar with the family and knew they wanted a tutor and she knew I had an interest in tutoring so she matched us up. The 14-year-old had taught himself advanced level physics with the help of a friend and his amazing dad. We started by going over friction, a topic I haven't yet covered. I was under the assumption that I was there to tutor calculus or below but they wanted me to tutor relativity, light, and other topics I knew little about. After we realized this problem, they decided to let me help him with his English. They were from Hong Kong and I flew over to visit my girlfriend and do this. When we went over any problem, he solved the program in general terms. He would write everything into a relationship using variables instead of the actual numbers so he could get a better understanding of how it actually works. For example, if the problem asked, find the hypotenuse of a triangle if the two shorter sides are 3 and 4 inches, he would label them A and B and continue from there like they were numbers. Most people find this level of abstraction more difficult, especially at this age. The speed at which he did this was amazing too. I'd still be thinking about what the problem was asking and he would be halfway finished with it and it's in a language he barely understood. He had won a few international mathematics awards and I believe he could have easily have gotten a full ride to his university of choice, MIT, but his father wanted to wait until he was older. I encouraged him to let his son go early because it's a lot more impressive to go to university at 14 than it is to go at 18. I didn't feel it was right to tutor him anymore because he needed someone more advanced than me, but they really liked me so we did a few more meetings and then it was over. Regrettably, I haven't kept up with them. I don't know if they ever let him go to college. This was a year and a half ago so he might be 15 or 16 now. I've read about people like this who graduate high school and go to college by the age of 14 but I never thought I would meet one. One thing I noticed is his dad seemed to really take an interest in his son. While I was tutoring him his dad would be on the computer making word problems for him to solve. They proudly displayed all of his achievements. If there's anything you take away from this it is that I hope you encourage your children to do great things. It might look more impressive but it's devastating socially. I tutor kids in an after-school teaching center, and there's this one girl who, through a miracle, made it past 5th grade. Some kids are bad at maths, some kids are bad at languages. They learn Portuguese and some English at this level, and later a second foreign language. Some are bad at sports, some are bad at arts. But this girl, she is not only bad at all of them, she is downright terrible at most of them. I would usually help them with their homework and studying for tests with them, and then go over the tests they did after they got the grades back to see what went wrong. This girl had learned how to determine which numbers are multiples of other numbers, and there was a question that was like one boy is thinking of a number between 85 and 93. This number is a multiple of 7, but not a multiple of 3. Which number was he thinking of? This wasn't the exact question, but it was very close to this. And so I'm asking her what she thinks, and the first thing she says is I think it's 75. I reminded her it has to be between 85 and 93, and that 75 isn't a multiple of 7 in the first place, and she says okay, 82. This went on for literally at least 10 minutes. The worst part is this was a multiple choice question. Anyway, this girl is going places. Not college for sure, but places. I had a student in high school. He wasn't retarded or in any special ed classes. He stuck a crayon in his ear and it got stuck. He is going places. Not college but places. Talk about having earwax. TL. DR. Paper Snail Army. Kindergartners were making paper chains out of pre-cut strips of paper to decorate the classroom. One girl, I noticed, is not making chains, but instead rolling up the strips of paper into a spiral and taping it closed with a little tab sticking out. She had about 8 of them. Upon closer inspection she had also taken a marker to put 2 dots on that sticking out tab. When I finally asked what she was doing, she said these snails are my pets. I will definitely keep my eyes out for a girl with an army of snails in the future. Decoy snail. tutor. This kid was really creative. He would draw a ton of pictures that were detailed and awesome. He once built a video game out of cardboard. His imagination was just unreal. He couldn't concentrate and didn't like doing real school work. I never worried much because he was going to solve some problem no one has ever thought of. The moment in question he was asking me a bunch of questions when I was overwhelmed by work and getting other kids out the door. I told him to go draw a picture. He asked of what, so I said a polar bear cause it's my favorite animal. He goes away and comes back in like a minute and hands me a piece of paper with what looks like a keyhole on it. I asked him where's my polar bear. He told me it was a polar bear blinking in a snowstorm. I just kind of laughed. Kids going places. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.